Welcome back, everybody, and happy Monday. It's February 23rd, 2026. Now, you haven't heard much about gun bills this legislative session. There are some, but not many are sure bets to get momentum. We're going to go over them. We also have some news on women Baptist pastors and an imprisoned pastor. And if you're listening from certain parts of Mexico, you already know to be hunkered down until you hear otherwise. My name's Ike Morgan, and we're down in Alabama. Last week, we mentioned a bill in the Alabama state legislature that would create a so-called Second Amendment sales tax holiday during a weekend in August. Now, that means that on those days, the state would not charge its 4% sales tax on the purchases of firearms, ammunition, and some other hunting supplies. The bill has been approved by the House Ways and Means Education Committee. Now, it's not the only gun bill on Goat Hill this year. Courtesy of reporting by AL.com's John Sharp, let's run down the others. There's a measure that would raise the penalty for shooting into a school building or bus that's waiting to be taken up by the full House of Representatives. It would take the crime from a Class B felony to a Class A felony, which could mean a life sentence. Now, expect those two bills to get a pretty good look. The rest of the firearm legislation might take the supporters a little more work. Democrats are trying to bring back the requirement for concealed carry permits. Greensboro Democratic Senator Bobby Singleton filed the bill, but it's not yet come up in committee. Senate Democrats are also supporting the Gun Violence Protective Order Act, which would let judges temporarily have firearms taken away from a person who's considered an immediate threat, even if that person isn't present at an initial hearing. A Democratic effort in the House would make it a Class C misdemeanor to possess a firearm without a valid ID in the cities of Huntsville, Birmingham, or Montgomery. That's still in committee. Another bill in a House committee would require licensed firearms dealers to accept the return of a gun with a faulty condition and exchange it for the same gun if it's available. Also sitting in committee is a measure to penalize parents or guardians for children who bring unsecured firearms into a public school. And there are a pair of local bills to set the fee for a pistol permit at $20 in Elmore County and $37.50 in Jefferson County. Now, note that people do still purchase pistol permits in Alabama despite not being required to have one for concealed carry. Reasons for that include reciprocal agreements between Alabama and some other states that might honor your permit there. Also, there may be some public places that restrict firearms but allow them if you have a permit. And some sheriff's departments claim that it makes buying a gun faster. Haven't tested that one out yet. Alabama sheriffs were against lifting the permit requirement because it was a significant source of income. Women pastors have come between the Southern Baptist Convention and another pair of churches in Florida and Ohio, reports AL.com's Greg Garrison. Now, this policy isn't taking anybody by surprise. The convention's Baptist faith and message statement reads in part, quote, "While both men and women are gifted for service in the church, the office of pastor is limited to men as qualified by Scripture." The Southern Baptists base their view on biblical passages such as those that address church organizations in the Pauline epistles. The convention holds the belief that men and women are equal in value but serve different roles in family and church life. And that complementarian view leaves the pastoring up to the men. But the debate rages on. Just about 3 years ago, the convention disfellowshipped Saddleback Church. That's the California megachurch founded by Rick Warren. And this past week, the Southern Baptist Convention's executive committee ended its relationship with the Crossing Church in Tampa and Zion Temple Baptist Church in O'Fallon, Illinois, over what the SBC calls a lack of intent to cooperate to resolve a question of faith and practice. Well, one ex-pastor in the news was indeed a male pastor, but he apparently was also quite the embezzler. AL.com's Carol Robinson reports that a U.S. district judge sentenced Adrian Darrell Davis to 5 years in prison for embezzling more than $400,000 from All Nations Worship Assembly in Huntsville. The money was taken during the years 2018, 19, and 20. That church no longer exists. And Davis doesn't appear to have been doing a Robin Hood act with his loot either, unless Louis Vuitton's been down on his luck. According to court documents, Davis spent around $11,000 at Louis Vuitton, $5,300 at a New York sneaker store, and about $30,000 at the watch store Hublot, and bought an Audi A7 and a GMC Yukon with church funds. Of course, ill-gotten gains often aren't reported to your tax guy either, so in October, Davis pleaded guilty to wire fraud and filing a false tax return. The tax loss to the IRS totaled $114,859. Yesterday evening, the U.S. State Department issued a shelter-in-place warning to American citizens in parts of Mexico, reports AL.com's Lita Gore. The alert came after the death of a cartel leader known as El Mencho and ensuing violence. The Hill reported that the Mexican army killed El Mencho. From the alert, quote, "Due to ongoing security operations and related road blockages and criminal activity, U.S. citizens in the named locations should shelter in place until further notice." Now, there are a lot of places listed. I'm not going to go over all of them, and this could be an evolving situation. But as of this recording, it included areas in the states of Jalisco, Baja California, Quintana Roo, and others. Obviously, we only publish the podcast once a day, so this is going to change in a few hours. So keep up with the latest announcements from the State Department and check AL.com. Thanks so much for listening to us. We're going to be back again tomorrow. Until then, y'all come by and see us anytime you can on the internet at AL.com.